There is a group of people who will never appear on the front page of a magazine. They won't post about their progress. They will not announce their plans at the dinner table. And yet, quietly, steadily, without a single word of fanfare, they are building something the rest of the world will one day marvel at. I know these people. I have studied them. And for a long time, I was not one of them. I was 25 years old, working hard, spending everything I earned, and wondering why the numbers never added up. I had a job. I had ambition. What I did not have was discipline, the quiet, private, invisible kind that nobody teaches you and nobody can give you. The kind that operates in the dark, long before the harvest ever comes. Here is what I eventually learned. Wealth is not built in the moments people see. It is built in the moments no one is watching. And today I want to share with you 5 disciplines, 5 silent rules that separate the people who accumulate from the people who merely earn. They are not complicated. They are not secret in the way a locked vault is secret. They are secret because they are so simple, so unglamorous, so easy to dismiss, and that is precisely why most people never practice them. Stay with me through all 5, because the 5th, the one I will save for the final part of this message, is the one that ties all the others together. It is the discipline that, once you understand it, makes everything else make sense. And I promise you, by the time we get there, you will wonder how you ever lived without it. Let us begin. The first discipline is this: know exactly where every dollar goes, not approximately. Exactly. I want you to think about something for a moment. You work 40 hours a week, you trading your time, the one resource you can never get back, for money. And then, without a ledger, without a record, without a single accounting of where that money travels, you let it disappear, a little here, a little there. And at the end of the month, you have less than you expected and more confusion than you can explain. Here is what I call the private ledger. It is not a budget in the way most people use the word, a list of restrictions, a cage of numbers designed to make you feel guilty. No, the private ledger is simply this: a record of truth. What came in, what went out, what remained. The farmer who does not know how much seed he has planted cannot be surprised when the harvest is thin. And the man or woman who does not track the flow of money cannot be surprised when the account runs dry. Now here is the part that surprises people. The discipline of the private ledger is not about the numbers themselves. It is about the awareness that the numbers create. Ending when you write down what you spend, truly write it down in your own hand. Something shifts, you begin to see patterns. You begin to see the small leaks. The $5 here, the $12 there, the subscriptions you forgot you had, the habits that cost more than you realized. I once knew a man who kept meticulous records of his farm. Every bushel planted, every acre tended, every tool purchased. But he kept no records of his personal finances. Then he could tell you the yield per acre of his corn. He could not tell you where half his income went each month. That is not a money problem. That is an awareness problem. And awareness is the first discipline of the wealthy. The private ledger is easy to keep, and it is easy not to keep. That is the whole point. Most people choose the easier path, the path of not knowing. And not knowing is the beginning of not having. Start tonight, not tomorrow, tonight. Write down what you spent today, ending every dollar, every cent. Do it for 30 days, and I promise you, you will see your financial life differently. Not because the numbers changed, because you finally looked at them. The second discipline is one that has been practiced by the wisest people in every culture, in every era, across thousands of years of human commerce. And yet in our modern age, it is the most consistently ignored discipline of all. Pay yourself first. Not what is left over. Not the remainder after the bills, after the groceries, after the entertainment and the conveniences. First, and before anything else leaves your hand, a portion. I recommend at least 10 cents of every dollar. Belongs to your future self. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I don't have enough to save anything. I understand that feeling. I lived it. But let me offer you a different way of seeing this. The issue is almost never the amount. The issue is the habit. A person who saves 10% of a small income is building something far more valuable than the money itself. They are building the habit of self-investment. They are training the mind to say, my future matters more than my present comfort. Think of the sower. The sower does not eat all the seed at harvest. A portion of every harvest is set aside, protected, preserved for the next planting season. The sower who eats all the seed has a full stomach today and an empty field tomorrow. And an empty field in spring is a very lonely place. Most people reverse this discipline entirely. They spend first and save what remains. And what remains, more often than not, is nothing. Not because they earn too little, because they saved last. Here is the formula I have taught for decades: earn, then divide. Before the money touches anything else, divide it. In a portion to your future, a portion to your needs, a portion to your wants. That sequence, future first, then needs, then wants, is the sequence that builds wealth. Then reverse it, and you have the sequence that builds debt. And here is the beautiful truth about this discipline. When you practice it consistently, when you protect that portion faithfully every single time, the amount matters less and less. Because compound growth does not ask how you feel about saving. It does not care whether you were motivated that day. It simply multiplies what you give it. And time, patient, indifferent, magnificent time, does the rest. 10% of a modest income invested faithfully over 30 years becomes a number that will astonish you. Not because of any trick, because of the simple, relentless arithmetic of compounding. Pay yourself first, every time, without exception. That is the second discipline. Let me ask you something honest. Think about the 5 people you spend the most time with, not who you admire from a distance, not who you follow or watch or read about. The 5 people whose voices you hear most often, whose opinions shape your thinking, whose habits rub off on yours without you even noticing. Are those 5 people building wealth? Are they disciplined? Are they growing? Because here is what I have observed, and I have observed this across decades and across every walk of life. You will, over time, become the average of the people you spend the most time with. Their ambition, or their lack of it, will become yours. Then in their financial habits, their attitudes about money, their willingness to delay gratification, all of it seeps into you like water into soil. This is not a criticism of anyone. It is simply a law. The law of association. I grew up around people who were good, hard-working, decent people. But they had a poverty mindset, not because they were lazy, but because no one had ever shown them another way. And for years, without realizing it, I absorbed that mindset. I thought the way they thought. I spent the way they spent. I limited myself the way they limited themselves. It was not until I found a mentor, a man who had built real, lasting wealth, that my thinking began to change. And it changed not because he lectured me. It changed because I watched how he lived. I watched what he read. I watched how he talked about money, not with anxiety, not with guilt, but with clarity and intention. The narrow circle is the discipline of being deliberate about who gets your time and your attention. This does not mean abandoning people you love. It means being honest about the influence those people have on you and actively seeking out the company of people who are where you want to be. Find a mentor if you can, and read the biographies of those who built what you want to build. Attend the rooms where serious people gather. Sit at the edge of conversations that stretch your thinking. Yin slowly and slowly, not overnight, but slowly and surely, your average will rise. The narrow circle is easy to maintain, and it is easy to stay comfortable with familiar faces and familiar conversations. But comfortable circles rarely produce uncommon results. Choose your 5 carefully, and they are shaping your future whether you choose them or not. The wealthy read, not occasionally, not when they feel like it, daily. Standing, I have said this for as long as I can remember, and I will say it again here because it bears repeating until it becomes a conviction rather than a suggestion. If you read 1 good book per month, just 1, in 10 years, you will have read 120 books. And 120 carefully chosen books, absorbed and applied, will transform any life. Now, someone will say to me, I don't have time to read. And to that, I say this, you have time for everything you have decided matters. The question is not time. The question is priority. The daily reading hour, even if it is only 30 minutes, even if it is only 20, is the discipline of investing in your most important asset. Not the stock market, not real estate. Your mind, your thinking, your capacity to see the world more clearly and make better decisions as a result. Think of the mind like a garden. Left unattended, it grows weeds, worry, doubt, fear, cynicism, the voices of people who told you what you could not do. These things grow on their own. You do not have to plant them. Wisdom, perspective, new ideas, financial understanding, these must be planted deliberately. They must be watered daily. And the books you read are the seeds. And I am not talking about reading to appear educated. I am talking about reading to become capable. There is a difference. Read about money, how it moves, how it compounds, how the wealthy think about it. Read about history, what worked, what failed, and why. Read about philosophy, not to become philosophical, but to become clear about what you value and why you live the way you live. The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read. That is not a judgment. That is simply a fact. The information you need to build a better life is available. It has always been available to anyone willing to sit down and receive it. 30 minutes a day, 1 book a month. Dinding 120 books in a decade, that is the daily reading hour. It is easy to do, and it is easy not to do. But the person who does it faithfully, quietly, without announcing it to anyone, will think differently in a year, see differently in 5, and live differently in 10. If these first 4 disciplines are speaking to you, if you are hearing something in this message that feels like it was meant for you today, then I want you to do one thing right now. Subscribe to this channel, because what I am sharing with you here is not a one-time message. This is a body of philosophy, a way of seeing life and money and personal development that we explore every single week. And what I am about to share with you next, Disciplines 4 and 5, including the one I have been holding back. Those are the ones that tend to change everything. Stay with me. The most important part of this conversation is just ahead. The thing most people do not design their week. They react to it. Monday arrives and they respond to whatever is loudest. Tuesday comes and they put out whatever fire is nearest. By Friday, they are exhausted, behind on what mattered, and vaguely aware that the week did not go the way they intended. And then Sunday night arrives, and the whole cycle begins again. I call this living by default. And living by default is the single greatest destroyer of financial progress that I know of, not because it is dramatic, not because it is catastrophic, but because it is invisible. You never see the wealth you did not build. You never feel the opportunity you did not take. The loss is silent, and that is what makes it so dangerous. The discipline of the designed week is the practice of sitting down before the week begins and deciding in advance what the week will accomplish, not what you hope will happen. What you have decided will happen. Here is the distinction I want you to understand. There are two kinds of time in every week. There is reactive time, the time that belongs to the demands of others, the interruptions, the urgencies that feel important but rarely are. And there is proactive time, the time you protect in advance for the activities that build your future. The wealthy are not people who have more time. They are people who protect more proactive time. They design their week so that the important things, the reading, the financial review, the investment research, the skill development, the relationship with a mentor, happen first before the reactive demands consume everything. This requires saying no. And saying no is one of the most financially powerful words in the English language. No to the distraction. No to the social obligation that produces nothing. No to the meeting that could have been a note. Every no to something small is a yes to something large. Design your week on Sunday evening. Write down 3 things. Just 3 that must happen this week to move your financial life forward. Not 10 things, not a wish list. 3 things. Then protect the time for those 3 things as if your future depends on it, because it does. The designed week is easy to practice, and it is easy to skip. Most people skip it, and then they wonder at the end of the year why the year looked so much like the one before. I want to tell you about the ant. Watch the ant in summer. It does not sit in the shade and complain about the heat. It does not wait for a more convenient season. It does not ask whether the work will be appreciated or whether the colony will notice its contribution. It simply works. It carries, it stores, it prepares. And why? Ding, because the ant understands something that most people never learn. Summer does not last forever. Winter is coming, and the ant who does not prepare in summer will not eat in winter. This is not a metaphor. This is a law. The law of the seasons, and it applies to your financial life as surely as it applies to the field. Delayed gratification is the discipline of the ant. It is the practice of choosing the future harvest over the present comfort. It is saying, I will not spend today what I will need tomorrow. I will not consume the seed that was meant for planting. Now, I am not suggesting you live without joy. I am not suggesting you deny yourself every pleasure in the name of some distant future. That is not balance. That is punishment. And punishment is not sustainable. What I am suggesting is this: before every significant purchase, ask yourself one question. Is this a want or a need? And if it is a want, if it is something that would feel good today but contributes nothing to your future, ask yourself whether you are willing to pay the price. Not the dollar price, the opportunity price. What will this cost you in compound growth? What will this cost you in financial freedom? What will this cost your future self? Most people never ask that question. And so they spend freely today and wonder later why freedom feels so far away. The ant does not need to understand compound interest to practice delayed gratification. Yeah, it simply follows the law of the seasons. Summer is for building. Winter is for harvesting what you built. And the people who build wealth in silence, the ones who never announce it, never rush it, never trade the future for the present, they are practicing the discipline of the ant. Easy to do, easy not to do. The ant never forgets. Most people do. Here is a statement that changed my life. when I first heard it and I wanted to change yours. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Your job will make you a living. Working on yourself will make you a fortune. Think about that distinction carefully. Your job pays you for what you currently know, what you currently can do, what you currently are. It rewards your present capacity. But the market, life opportunity, wealth, rewards your future capacity. And your future capacity is built entirely by what you do with your private hours. Most people invest everything into their job performance and nothing into their personal development. They become excellent at what they do today and wonder why tomorrow looks the same as yesterday. The answer is simple. You cannot earn beyond what you are. And what you are is determined by what you study, what you practice, what you expose your mind to in the hours when no one is watching. I spent years working hard at my job. I was diligent. I was reliable. I showed up on time and I did what was asked of me. And my income reflected exactly that, the income of a diligent, reliable, average performer. It was not until I began working on my mind, my vocabulary, my financial understanding, my ability to communicate and persuade and think. It was not until I invested in myself the way I invested in my job that things began to change. Here is the formula I want you to remember. For every hour you give to your employer, give 30 minutes to yourself. Not to entertainment, not to distraction, to growth, tuned into the books, the courses, the mentors, the practices that expand what you are capable of. Do that faithfully for 5 years and you will not recognize yourself. And the market, the beautiful, indifferent, merit, rewarding market will pay you accordingly. Do not wish your job were easier, wish you were better. Do not wish for fewer challenges, or wish for more skills. The challenges will not decrease. But if you are better, if you are more capable, more knowledgeable, more disciplined, the same challenges that once stopped you will become the opportunities that propel you. Or work harder on yourself. Every day, in private, without announcement. That is the discipline that multiplies everything else. There is a disease I have observed in people who struggle financially, and it is not laziness. It is not lack of intelligence. It is not even lack of opportunity. It is short-sightedness, the inability or the unwillingness to think beyond the immediate. The person who cannot see past next month will make decisions that feel good today and cost enormously tomorrow. The person who can see 10 years ahead will make decisions that feel uncomfortable today and pay magnificently tomorrow. This is the discipline of the long view. It is perhaps the most countercultural discipline on this list because we live in a world that rewards the immediate. Everything is instant. Results, entertainment, gratification, all of it available now at the touch of a finger. And that immediacy trains the mind to expect now, to want now, and to measure success by what is happening now. But wealth does not operate on the timeline of now. Wealth operates on the timeline of years, of decades, of patient, consistent, compounding effort applied in the same direction over a long period of time. Think of the man who plants an oak tree. He does not plant it and sit beside it every day, impatient for shade. He plants it, tends it, and understands that the shade will come. Not this season, perhaps not the next, but it will come. And when it comes, it will be magnificent. The man who planted a seed will one day sit beneath a canopy, but only if he had the long view when he planted it. And I want you to ask yourself this question: what are you planting today that your future self will sit beneath? Not what are you spending today? Not what are you enjoying today? What are you planting? The long view is not pessimism about the present. It is optimism about the future. A specific, earned Disciplined optimism that says, if I plant well today, the harvest will come. And it will, it always does. The law of the harvest has never failed. Plant in spring, tend in summer, harvest in autumn. The seasons do not negotiate. They simply deliver what you planted. Practice the long view. Make decisions for your 5-year self, not your 5-minute self. That shift alone, that single change in perspective, is worth more than any tactic or strategy I could ever teach you. We are now deep into this message together. And if you have stayed this far, if these disciplines are landing somewhere real inside you, then I want to say something directly. Subscribe to this channel, not because I am asking for a number, but because what I share here week after week is designed for the person who is serious. The person who wants more than information, who wants a philosophy to live by. If that is you, one click keeps this conversation going. And the discipline I am about to share with you, the fifth, the one I have been holding back, that is the one that makes all the others permanent. Do not leave before we get there. Before I reveal the fifth discipline, I want to give you one that most teachers skip entirely because it is uncomfortable. Attending requires a kind of courage that has nothing to do with the marketplace, everything to do with the mirror, the discipline of the honest inventory. Once a year, at minimum once a year. Sit down with yourself and take a full accounting, not of your bank account, of yourself, your habits, your associations, your daily disciplines, your progress toward the goals you set 12 months ago. Ask yourself the hard questions. Am I earning what I am worth? If not, what specifically am I willing to change? Am I spending my time on things that build my future or things that merely fill my present? Are the people around me lifting me or limiting me? Am I reading? Am I growing? Am I practicing what I know or simply knowing it? The honest inventory is not self-punishment. I want to be clear about that. It is not an exercise in cataloging your failures so that you can feel badly about them. It is an exercise in clarity, and clarity. Honest, unsparing clarity about where you are versus where you want to be is the beginning of every meaningful change. Most people avoid this discipline because the mirror is uncomfortable. It is easier to stay busy than to be honest. It is easier to blame the economy, the timing, the circumstances, than to sit quietly and ask, what is my part in this? What have I done? And what have I failed to do? But here is what I have found. The people who build wealth in silence are not people who never make mistakes. They are people who see their mistakes clearly, learn from them quickly, and adjust without drama. They take the honest inventory and they act on what they find. That is the difference. Take the honest inventory. Do it tonight if you can. Write down where you are. Write down where you want to be. Write down the specific disciplines you have been practicing and the ones you have been avoiding. And this is the critical part, do not judge what you find. Simply see it. And then decide what you will do differently. Seeing clearly is the first act of changing deliberately. Here is something I have observed about the people who struggle financially for a lifetime. They are not, in most cases, less intelligent than those who succeed. They are not less capable. What they are, in many cases, is more reactive. They are driven by their emotions rather than their decisions. The market goes down and they panic. The market goes up and they become reckless. Someone criticizes their plan and they abandon it. Someone flatters their idea and they double down on something that does not work. They are at the mercy of the emotional weather. And the emotional weather, as you know, changes constantly. The emotional ownership is the discipline of being the author of your responses rather than the victim of your reactions. It is the practice of pausing, just pausing, between what happens to you and what you do about it. I am not suggesting you become emotionless. The emotion is part of being human, and I would never ask you to trade your humanity for your portfolio. What I am suggesting is this: your financial decisions must be made from your values, not your feelings. From your plan, not your panic. From your long view, not your present anxiety. The person who sells in fear loses twice. They lose the investment, and they lose the lesson that staying would have taught them. The person who buys in greed, it overpays and wonders later why the numbers never worked. Emotion applied to money is almost always expensive. Practice the pause. When you feel the urge to make a financial decision from a place of strong emotion, fear, excitement, anger, envy, wait, sleep on it, write it down, talk to your mentor. Give the emotion time to settle before you give it the keys to your future. The storms will come. They always come. The economy will contract. Opportunities will appear and disappear. Ending, people will disappoint you. Plans will need to be revised. The discipline is not in preventing the storms. It is in not letting the storms make your decisions for you. Own your emotions and do not be owned by them. That is the discipline that keeps everything else intact when the world gets difficult. Let me tell you about the formula for failure. It is not laziness, not the dramatic, obvious kind. The formula for failure is a few small errors in judgment repeated every day over a long period of time. And the formula for success, a few simple disciplines practiced every day over a long period of time. Do you notice something? The two formulas are nearly identical. The difference is not the size of the action. The difference is the direction. Practiced consistently, small disciplines compound into wealth. Neglected consistently, small errors compound into poverty. The arithmetic is the same, and only the direction differs. This is the discipline of consistent action, not inspired action, and not action taken when you feel motivated, when the stars align, when you wake up energized and clear. Consistent action. Action taken on the days when you do not feel like it. On the days when the results are not visible yet. On the days when doubt is louder than confidence. Motivation is a visitor. It comes and goes on its own schedule. Discipline is a resident. It lives with you permanently if you invite it in and refuse to let it leave. The wealthy do not wait for motivation. They have trained themselves to act without it. Ending in think of the farmer again. The farmer does not wait to feel inspired before planting. Spring arrives and the farmer plants, because that is what the season requires, regardless of how the farmer feels about it. The crop does not care about your mood. Ending, the harvest will come from what was planted, not from what was intended. I want you to identify one financial discipline, just one that you will practice every single day for the next 90 days. Not when you feel like it, every day. The private ledger. The 30 minutes of reading, the weekly design. One discipline, 90 days without exception. At the end of 90 days, that discipline will not feel like discipline anymore. It will feel like identity. And identity is permanent in a way that motivation never is. Be honest with yourself right now. Ending, which of the disciplines we have discussed today have you been practicing, and which have you been meaning to start? Drop a comment below and tell me. Not for me, for yourself. Because naming it is the first step to owning it. And now we arrive at the fifth discipline, the one I promised you at the beginning, the one that ties all the others together. I have taught the private ledger. I have taught paying yourself first. I have taught the narrow circle, the daily reading hour, the designed week, delayed gratification, working harder on yourself than on your job, the long view, the honest inventory, being emotional ownership, and consistent action. All of those disciplines are real. All of them work. I have seen them work in my own life and in the lives of thousands of people I have had the privilege of teaching. But here is what I have observed. People can know all of those disciplines and still not practice them. They can hear the philosophy, nod in agreement, feel genuinely moved, and then wake up the next morning and do exactly what they did the day before. Not because they are weak, not because they lack intelligence, but because they have not done the one thing that makes all the other disciplines permanent. They have not decided who they are becoming. The fifth discipline is the discipline of becoming. It is the practice of defining clearly, specifically, in writing, the person you are in the process of becoming, in not who you are today, who you are choosing to be. Here is why this matters. Every discipline I have described today requires you to act in ways that your current self may not yet be comfortable with. Saving when you want to spend. Reading when you want to rest. Designing your week when you want to react. Practicing emotional ownership when you want to panic. Once these actions feel unnatural at first, not because they are wrong, but because they belong to a version of you that you have not yet fully inhabited. And the only way to make them feel natural is to decide in advance that they are who you are, not who you are trying to be, who you are. Here is the exercise, ending it, write this at the top of a page. I am the kind of person who, and then finish that sentence with every discipline you want to make permanent. I am the kind of person who tracks every dollar. I am the kind of person who pays myself first. I am the kind of person who reads daily. Then I am the kind of person who designs my week with intention. I am the kind of person who practices the long view. Read that page every morning, not as a wish, as a declaration, as a statement of identity. Because here is the truth that underlies every other truth I have shared today. Behavior follows identity. You will not consistently act like a wealthy person until you consistently see yourself as one. Not arrogantly, not prematurely, but genuinely, with the quiet conviction of someone who has decided in private, before any external evidence confirms it, that this is who they are. The wealthy do not build in silence because they are hiding. They build in silence because they are busy becoming. They have no time for announcement because they are too occupied with the work of transformation. And they are writing in their ledgers, reading their books, designing their weeks, paying themselves first, tending their circles, practicing the long view. And underneath all of it, they are becoming day by day the person for whom wealth is simply the natural result of who they are. That is the fifth discipline, and it is the greatest of them all. Ending one, and if this message has spoken to something real in you today, if you feel somewhere in your chest that these are not just ideas but instructions, then I want you to do something. And Marvin, share this video with one person who needs to hear it, not because I am asking for the numbers, because there is someone in your life right now who is working hard and wondering why the results are not matching the effort. Send this to them. And that it may be the most valuable thing you give them this year. And if you have made it all the way to this moment, if you have sat with this message from beginning to end, then you already know something important about yourself. You are not average. Average people do not do this. They do not sit with a philosophy for 30 minutes and let it work on them. You do? And that tells me that the disciplines we have discussed today are not foreign to you. They are simply waiting to claim them. Start tonight, not tomorrow. Tonight. Modern Amain, the person who knows these 5 disciplines and does nothing has gained nothing. The person who knows even one and acts on it today, that person has already begun to build. And thanks for watching. The end screen has more in this same world. Pick one, and keep going. Thanks for being here. Pick whichever video on the end screen calls to you.